Hi folks, it's Evo here from Thundermist Lure Company, and welcome to part 2 of our special 3-part sheephead series. Part 2 is how to clean a sheephead, and Antonio has volunteered, our boatless angler.
I'll get my hands dirty.
He'll get his hands dirty. He's going to show us how to clean a sheephead.
Yeah, so this is a smaller sheephead. We have a bigger one as well that
we do.
We'll clean too, but this is how we'll start. So just move the fin behind the head on an angle. A lot of people go straight and you miss a good chunk of meat, so
good point.
Go on an angle. And then always remember to cut away from you. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just cut underneath the skin. So I'm going to actually, because this one's smaller, I'm going to rip the skin off rather than cut it off with a knife. So just to show you guys the difference there. So I'm just underneath the skin. And then I'm going to do here too, because I'm going to rip this skin off. So typically you wouldn't do the bottom side here, but I'm just going underneath the skin.
No, you wouldn't do that for the bigger one.
No.
Okay, you're going to rip the skin on the smaller one?
Yep.
And then on the bigger one, you're going to remove the skin in a
with
different...
the knife.
With the knife. Okay, maybe we'll show that too.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll just quickly do it on the other side. Just behind the head. Cut away from you. Just get underneath the skin. Pretty sharp knife.
Yes, you need a sharp knife, right? It's very important.
And then again, underneath the belly here, because we're ripping the skin off. Just underneath the skin, like that. Okay, so when ripping the skin off, you grab a corner. And you'll notice how easily it rips off. Just grab it. Rip it right off.
Wow, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, we do that with perch, but I've never done that with sheephead, so I'm surprised to see you do that.
Sheephead have a really thin skin and thick scales.
Okay.
So it rips off easily, but you'll see
that.
all the scales come off like they're nothing. The skin is very thin.
Okay.
So you can rip it right off.
Very good. Well, that's an easy way to do it.
Makes a bit of a mess, but it's okay.
Well, I mean, it's one way or another, right?
So now you're ready to make your fillet, and they have a really narrow fillet, but and thick bone. So people who are cleaning fish for the first time, this is a really easy fish to do it with. So you can just go along the backbone there. Very easily done.
You're just following the backbone.
Just following the backbone.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm gonna go slow here.
Now you got the rib cage there now too, right?
So you can poke through here when you're at the tail and go down across. And then this is the rib cage here. So you can see there's really not much meat on a sheephead beyond the rib cage. So what we'll do is we'll just go boneless here along the rib cage. And there's a perfect boneless fillet.
Very nice.
With no skin.
Very nice. That's a nice fillet right there. And you know what? That little bit of rib cage is not like you got just a little piece there, and it's all bones.
It's all bones. There's
very,
a tiny little bit here, but this has got all bones inside. So there's really, it's something you could use for a soup. You could even put the head for soup and the belly.
Okay.
Or a sauce or something. But if
so,
you're gonna fry it, you don't want that because you're picking bones out of your teeth.
Okay. So maybe just use it for a soup broth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Nothing needs to go to waste, right?
So we'll do the same thing on the other side. Try to get an angle here for the camera.
Well, the Boatless Angler makes it look easy.
So just going around the bones.
And then around the rib cage.
Right to the rib cage. Poke through. So here's that rib cage again.
Right.
Right. We'll get as much meat as we can off of there.
Beautiful. Looky there.
2 boneless fillets.
Very, very nice. Okay, so now you're gonna do the same. You're gonna do the same filleting method for the big one.
Right.
Except you're not gonna peel the skin off. You're gonna take the skin off after.
Exactly.
Okay.
And there'll be more steps with the big one too, because sheephead tend to have some red meat. So
we're going to show that too?
Yep.
Okay, so let's get the big one done, and we'll show the extra steps that you do.
Sounds good.
All right. Okay, so that was the bigger one.
Yep.
You did the same method.
Exactly the same, but you'll see a difference here. The bigger one, I left the skin on, unlike the small one where we ripped it off. It's because the skin is thicker here, but the scales are also thick. So
Okay.
you can rip it off, but it's a lot more work.
Okay. So better to take it off
So
afterwards.
a couple things to notice on a bigger sheephead, there's a lot of fat. So you see there's a chunk of fat here. That's going to be really fishy. So you can cut that right out. Trim off any fat. Along the top here, there's a lot of fat here.
Oh yeah, I see that.
So really fatty. It's actually very oily. So it's good to cut that off first.
Now another point to mention, I think, with the fat, it usually collects contaminants.
Right.
Are stored in the fat, right?
Yep. All the heavy metals and stuff.
Yeah. So not only doesn't taste good, it's also not good for you. So it's good to remove the fat.
So I trim it a little bit from this side before I take the skin off, just because it's easily done. But we're going to take the skin off of this one, and I'm going to show you a different method. So under this, you can see here, there's some red meat coming out here. So on a bigger fish, a bigger sheephead, there's a lot of red meat. Unlike the small one where there's no red meat.
Here.
On the back side here.
Yeah.
So there's no red meat here.
Right.
Because it's so small, but this
Right.
one's going to have a lot of red meat on the underside here. So I'm going to actually not go right down to the skin. I'm going to stay, an 1/8 of an inch off.
Okay.
And that'll help with removing a lot of that red meat.
Okay.
So you can see here as I just started,
Oh yeah. You
right
see
on the
that.
skin, you can see there's lots of red meat, right?
Yeah.
So that's why if you can stay just off the skin, the red meat stays on the skin.
And that's nice and white.
And then you get white meat here. Otherwise, we'll do it the opposite way on the other one just to show the difference. But yeah, and then when you get closer to here, you can go back down to the skin because there's not that much red meat on the front part here.
Oh, okay. Whoop, you just
Or you can
cut
go
through.
right through the skin like I did there.
That's what happens when you have a sharp knife.
Yeah, but here's a good example, right? So you can see how there's some red meat on this side
Yeah.
here and
Yeah.
white meat here. So
Yeah.
if this ever happens to you, it happens for me when I have a really sharp knife sometimes. You start from the other side, right?
No harm done.
No.
There you
And
go.
then you just finish it off that way.
There you go.
But here you can see where I stayed right close to the skin, it's very fatty.
Right.
So,
Whereas over here,
right, all that is now stuck to the skin. Here, we still have to remove all that now.
so you're going to remove that.
Yeah, so you're gonna take your knife.
Hmm.
You don't wanna go too deep. You wanna take a little bit at a time.
You only want to remove that dark meat.
Right, dark meat and fat.
Now, I should also say, we do this for our walleye. We do it on any bigger fish.
Right, exactly.
Right? You always want to remove the fat, and you always want to remove that dark meat.
So let's do quick here. You get the point though, right? You just want to take out all this stuff. If you can, you'll do it until there's just white meat. And here you can, there's some red meat along here. You can cut it down the center. A lot of people cut it right down the center.
Oh yeah, to get rid of that red meat.
In the middle, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm gonna do here, just to show. So this is a pretty much, I mean, you can take out a little bit more there, and we will, but that's boneless. And then on this side, just to remove that fatty in the middle of the lateral line, just take it right out
Beautiful.
like that. And you can trim it up. But again, boneless and then, red meat.
Nice.
So I guess I showed two things at once there.
Yeah, you kind of did, eh?
Yeah, so the point is to stay off the skin like that, because you can leave all that fat and red meat right on the skin.
Right.
But when I did it closer, you can see there was some red meat and fat stuck to the fillet. So
Okay.
either way, you want to just make sure it's off
Perfect.
before you eat it.
Well, there's two different ways to fillet a sheephead and get boneless fillets and trim the sheephead to make it taste even better.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
And speaking of taste, stay tuned, folks, because part 3 of this 3-part episode, we're going to do some cooking, maybe a couple different ways, and you'll be surprised on how tasty sheephead really are. So stay tuned. We'll see you next week. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, good luck and good fishing. Thanks for the demo.
No